Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking into broad match in Google search campaigns because this match type is becoming increasingly more relevant because, well, Google has been really pushing it pretty hard onto its users with some campaigns having this automatically turned on, and some specialists even speculating about whether or not Google is going to remove all the other match types and only leave us with broad match. So I thought, you know what, how about we actually look into this today in an extremely beginner friendly way without anything too complicated, just so you can understand a little bit better what it is and how it works, because it does work a little bit differently than some of the other match types. So first of all, let's look at where this becomes relevant. Obviously, this becomes relevant, jumping a little bit ahead right here, but it becomes relevant when we get to the ad group section, right? The part where we're putting in the keywords, the part where we're naming the ad group right up here, right? This is where it becomes relevant. And this is where a lot of users who are not familiar with Google Ads kind of mess up in some situations, right? Because maybe they think that they can just input the keywords and it really doesn't matter how many keywords you put in or what types of keywords you put in or how you structure them. Maybe, you could put everything into one ad group. Maybe the match type doesn't really matter because, it's only right down here that you get a little glimpse of what that even is without a clear explanation. You have to click on learn more. So Google doesn't really do a great job at educating its users who maybe are not familiar with the platform about these different match types. So again, this is the situation where it becomes extremely relevant, right? And we're going to talk today about sort of the way that it works and the way you can structure these campaigns so that next time you get to this point, you know exactly what to do. So first of all, let me jump into what the bad situation could look like if you were to mess up this part and not even be aware of it. So this right here is something that I found in one of my clients' accounts, right? This is an account that was previously managed by another agency. I'm just going to move myself out of the way here. This was an account that was managed by another agency in the past, and what they did was they had to add over 3,500 negative keywords. That means that they have to go in and look at what people are looking for, or rather when their campaign is showing up, what types of searches it's showing up for, and they have to actually manually remove all of these different keywords that are not relevant. So for example, if I was advertising wooden furniture and someone is looking for other types of furniture, I might want to take and exclude those words that don't really match up with what I'm trying to promote, right? So they did that consistently, which I guess, is a positive, but they had to exclude over 3,500 different keywords. And the reason why this is bad is because this takes up a lot of time, and it takes time away from other optimization opportunities, right? So whether it's you doing it yourself, whether it's you hiring somebody else to do it, you really don't want the majority of that time to go to this specific thing, because this is only one campaign out of probably 5 or 6 campaigns. Sometimes you might have more campaigns. So what do you do in that situation, right? How do you even scale with so much optimizational effort going to just excluding keywords? It's pretty absurd. And what happened when I actually took over the account was I kind of simplified it, right? So we went from over 3,000 excluded keywords to only 21 negative keywords, right? So this is the same thing, right? Excluded keywords, negative keywords, it's the same thing in Google search ads. And the point is that I didn't really do anything, spectacular. All I did was I stuck to a structure that I knew would work for Google Ads, right? Because again, this does help you save a lot of time. And the reason why I'm not excluding, 3,000 different keywords is because I don't have to, right? Because the way that Google Ads now scans my campaign, my ad group, the way that it sees it, it understands what I'm trying to promote, so it doesn't show up next to a bunch of irrelevant searches, right? Now, this is not the worst case that I've seen, because this is probably the worst case in terms of the amount of time that was dedicated to this one task of excluding, or adding negative keywords. But in terms of ad spend, from what I could find, it's kind of difficult to get this number, but I tried, And I think they only spent a few percent of their entire ad spend on these keywords that they had to exclude. So it's not like they wasted a whole lot of money, but they did waste a whole lot of time. And in some cases that are even worse than this, you get the kind of opposite of this, which is that they structure their campaign in a way that they should be excluding thousands of keywords, but they're not. And they end up simply showing up for irrelevant queries and wasting their money. So again, as chaotic as this sounds, this specific scenario, this is one of the better scenarios that I've seen in accounts. So the question is, how does it work then? And we can actually go to Google themselves and see how they describe the different match types. So this is a general overview, right? So for example, for the keyword furniture store, if you were to use broad match, it could show up for home decor, cream colored leather sectional. I mean, you know, these kind of keywords that are not directly related. They might be in some way, but the problem is that there's no clear intent here, right? Or it's not that specific keyword, and maybe you want to advertise for that specific keyword, or maybe more specific than something that we're seeing right here in the broad match section, right? We don't want to show up for some of these queries maybe, right? Phrase match does a little bit of a better job for this. So I think phrase match is typically the safer option for a lot of users, because it does kind of, you know, stick to something more related to that main keyword, right? So phrase match, where you put it into quotations like this, right? You get more related search terms that you show up for example, cheap furniture stores, living room furniture deals, and things of that nature. So you at least have, you know, the word furniture in these, and then this is what shop is the best place to find a bedroom dresser. So this is more so just kind of, I guess, you know, context based. It understands what the person is looking for, which is probably a furniture store, right? So phrase match, again, does a little bit of a better job, and then exact match is probably the most, well, exact, most precise, but it can be a little bit limiting. So phrase match, as a general rule, I think is relatively beginner friendly. However, today we are talking about broad match, so let's go ahead and look into what Google looks at when they're actually deciding whether or not to show your ad for a user when you're actually using broad match. So here we are in the Google support page, right? One of their help sections. Specifically looking at the different match types and the way that they work. And I'm actually going to put this link into the description of this video, so make sure you check that out as well if you are interested in reading up a little bit more. But looking specifically at broad match, we can see that there are several different things that broad match looks at that maybe other keywords might not. For example, other match types might not, right? So for example, exact match or phrase match. So one of these is the user's intent, the recent activities rather, and that's how they can determine maybe sometimes the intent behind the search. So this is extremely important to understand, because we want to make sure that we provide Google with a very clear direction, because then it can actually look at the user's past queries, their past searches, and they can determine what to show. So for example, if before I was looking for Nike, maybe I was looking just for running shoes, right? I was looking for running shoes, I was looking for Nike. Maybe later on when I'm actually back on Google and I'm searching and I look up something like the best shoe for a marathon, maybe I can get an ad for a Nike shoe, right? Because of my past queries, Google is going to be like, okay, this is something that's relevant. This is what you want to see, right? Even though I didn't use those words in my search at that very specific time, because I looked for them in my last session, Google does kind of keep that in mind, and it understands a little bit better what it is that I want. Obviously, it looks at the content of the landing page. So once again, it's extremely important to kind of structure your campaign so that you can send users to the most relevant landing page, right? So for example, if I have a bunch of different products in my e-commerce store, I have everything from t-shirts to jeans to shoes. I really don't want to be advertising shoes and sending them to the homepage, because a far more relevant page and one that would provide more context for Google would be the shoe category, right? So again, this is something that we have to keep in mind when we're setting up the broad match keywords in our campaigns. And of course, it does use the other keywords in the ad group to better understand keyword intent. And this is the most important one for this very specific video, because that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about how you can structure your campaign to actually assist with teaching Google, what this campaign is about, what it is that I'm trying to promote. So I think right now we can go back to the whiteboard and get into how that would actually look. So here we are back in the whiteboard looking at a few very basic structures. So let's say these are two different campaigns and I'm trying to promote my services for Google Ads, for digital marketing in general, right? I'm trying to promote it on Google. These are two different ways that I've seen people doing it, that one of them is a little bit better than the other one based on what we just saw and how broad match actually works. And then the other one, is a little bit messy. So first one at the top right here is the cleaner version, right? This is the one that's a little bit better based on what we had seen. So the fact that Google looks at the past queries of the user, I don't think it really comes into play in here. But what does come into play is the landing page and the fact that broad match looks at the other keywords within the ad group, right? And that's important because that kind of tells us how to structure it. So for example, if I'm advertising Google Ad Services and I have one ad group called Google Ad Services and I have one called Google Ads Consulting, I want to make sure that the general theme of both of these stays the same. And actually you can think of it as almost like a mind, an artificial intelligence mind that you're feeding this information into. So when you give it that one common theme, it understands exactly what this specific ad group is trying to promote. So for example, I say Google Ads Agencies, Google Ads Management Services, Google Ads Management Company. This kind of lets it understand that, okay, this is an agency, this is a company that provides Google Ads Management Services. And that's very easy for it to understand and to know when to show these queries, right? So now it's going to show queries, it's going to show these ads to users who are looking for this specific thing. And maybe they type it in a little bit differently, but again, if it looks at the user's last search session and they see that they were looking for Google Ads Services and now they're looking for PPC management, even though that's not one of these keywords, PPC, pay-per-click management, they're going to know that, okay, this comes from that same general kind of family of services or, terms or whatever. And it's going to know that, yes, this is relevant. I'm going to show this ad. And that's exactly what I want, right? I want this to be shown to users looking for that specific thing that I'm trying to promote. Here, it's the same exact thing. It's a little bit different. These users are not looking for ad management services. They're looking for consultations. They're looking for someone to talk to about their strategy, about their setup, whatever it might be. This bottom one is a little bit different now, right? So this is a more common kind of structure that I see, and this is the one that kind of hurts a little bit more in a lot of cases. So what we have here is digital marketing services as the campaign. And then we have two different ad groups. One is kind of general, right? Some people just say general and they pour in a bunch of keywords into it. And then we have one specifically for experts. So the general one, this is where it's kind of messy, right? Because we have digital marketing agencies, we have digital marketing consultant, we have marketing agency, Google Ads Services, Meta Ads Agency. So it's kind of messy, it's all over the place. Because digital marketing is not just Meta, it's not just Google Ads, and this could be a problem. It might not be, but it could be a problem because it might start showing, results for, showing ads for searches relating to content management. Maybe it's somebody looking for a job at a marketing agency, whatever it is. I think, again, the same thing can happen with this one, but the chances of this one having problems is, in my mind, a little bit lower than something like this, where it's kind of all over the place. So it's kind of related, but at the same time, it's pretty scattered, right? So it's for people looking for consultants, services, agencies, you name it, right? So again, this is why this one might only need a few negative keywords or excluded keywords, right? And then this one might need a lot more work, or if you don't notice, even worse, wasted money, right? So this one could waste less money, and this bottom one could be a huge waste of money if you don't catch it in time. And then going over to the experts ad group is pretty much the same situation, right? We have digital marketing experts, Google Ads consultation, Meta ad specialists. So depending on what you're advertising, right? Because if you're advertising consultations, then you probably want to let the system know that you're trying to consult people as opposed to just take over their accounts, right? But the reason why this matters is, again, Google search terms and all that, they have intent behind them. There's a story behind every single search, and you need to be able to catch that. And unfortunately, for us, it's a little bit difficult. So we have to trust that Google will do the job for us. And with broad match, again, it's not necessarily the most beginner-friendly match type. It does have its kind of times where it does shine better than other match types, but for it to do that, you do need to know how to approach it. So this was a very basic example, and I think you can go ahead and try this with your own services, your own products. Try to group them into different themes, try to break them down, and try to make it as clear as possible what goes where, so that your users know, or rather your system knows what users should see what ad and when to show it.